Many theories exist revolving around the tragic day of 9/11. Just under 3,000 lives were ended on that day, lives we will never forget. In this video, we will go over the theories that bring up the most compelling arguments and hold a lot of weight. Many people believe everything on the news, but what if the news only told you what you wanted to hear? From a fake Osama Bin Laden video, to phone calls being made from thousands of feet in the air, to the leaseholder of the World Trade Center knowing about the attacks and profiting with his new terrorist insurance policy, we go over 12 9/11 conspiracy theories that will blow your mind. Number one. In the week leading up to the tragic event, an extraordinary amount of put options were placed on the United Airlines and American Airlines stocks, the same airlines that were hijacked during the 9/11 attacks. Put options are basically options that would benefit an investor if a stock price declines. The many investors who had placed put options before 9/11 would see massive profits as the stock surged following the attack. How could this large amount of activity have happened if no big news or events happened before 9/11? Usually these were pretty steady stocks. Many speculate that traders were tipped off about the event and knowingly placed these put options on the airline companies. While most companies face a decline in stock price, some companies that support military needs saw dramatic increases, such as the company Raytheon. September 29, 2001, a story published in the San Francisco Chronicle claimed $2.5 million in profits from the stock options of United Airlines are yet to be claimed. The firm that would place this put option on the United States airline was managed by a man who is now in the number 3 executive director position at the Central Intelligence Agency. Number 2. The North American Aerospace Defense Command were running military exercises on September 11, 2001. One of the exercises involved a simulation of a live airplane being hijacked and accidentally crashing into one of their buildings. This was basically a simulation to prepare how to respond if this happens in real life. Coincidentally, the same event being simulated happened at the Twin Towers and the Pentagon, resulting in the cancellation of the exercise, an exercise that was happening the same day and just around the same time. What a bizarre coincidence. In the event that an airplane is hijacked, the North American Aerospace Defense Command, known as NORAD, is prepared to send out fighter jets, which can debilitate or shoot down the aircraft. On 9/11, NORAD generals said they learned of the hijackings in time to scramble fighter jets. Some skeptics believe NORAD, who was being commended by General Ralph Eberhart, ordered defense systems to stand down because of their lack of presence during the attacks. As far as we know, Eberhart's bewildering activities and decisions caused critical delays that led to an utterly failed military response. Flight 77, the airplane that crashed into the Pentagon, was spotted almost an hour before impact. Even flying over the White House, which is restricted airspace, this plane managed to not get intercepted by any fighter jets. Andrews Air Force Base, which was only 11 miles from the Pentagon, released no fighter jets. F-16 fighter jets were instead deployed from Langley Air Force Base, which is 120 miles south of the Pentagon. To make it even worse, the jets were sent multiple directions that did not include Washington, D.C. It was as if they were meant to fail. At least a dozen Air Force and National Guard bases were just moments of flight time away from the World Trade Center and Pentagon. How could there not be any interception or scramble of fighter jets once they realized the planes were hijacked, or at least noticed the planes were nowhere near their destination or flight path? The United States Air Force is the most technologically advanced and most dominant military force ever known to man. There were 7 air stations that were armed and on full alert to protect the continental United States on Tuesday, September 11, 2001. Almost 113 minutes elapsed between the time American Airlines Flight 11 lost contact and was hijacked at 8:13 till the time United Airlines Flight 93 crashed in Shanksville, Pennsylvania at 10:06. 153 minutes went by and the United States Air Force did not intercept any of these 4 hijacked airplanes. Number 3. While the jets scrambled everywhere, Flight 77 flown with incredible precision right into the Pentagon's newly renovated wedge, a new renovation that was almost near completion and was built to withstand terrorist attacks, ironically. Flight 77's flight path was so complex, many experienced pilots believed that the plane's maneuvers were incredibly difficult and damn near impossible. What makes this crash even more crazy is the fact that alleged pilot Hani Hanjour, who attended CRM Airline Training Center in Scottsdale, Arizona, was known to be a horrible pilot according to the instructors at the school. They are in disbelief that the airplane could have been flown by a pilot who couldn't even complete simple exercises with ease. Hanjour had a lot of trouble finishing flight school and would reapply. When Hanjour would reapply, he was declined training because he was so horrible at flying and would just be a waste of time to teach. He was at the school in 1996 and 1997. Hani Hanjour is credited with being the pilot of Flight 77. This is a man who, 3 weeks before September 11th, attempted to rent a Cessna at an airfield in Maryland. Suspicious of his dubious pilot's license, officials at the airfield insisted he take a chaperone test flight before a rental would be approved. He failed his test flight miserably. He could neither control nor properly land the Cessna. In fact, the instructors at the airfield in Maryland said it was like he had hardly even drove a car. He couldn't fly at all. The speed, the maneuverability, the way he turned, we all thought in the radar room, all of us experienced air traffic controllers, that was a military plane, says O'Brien. You don't fly a 757 in that manner. It's unsafe. How could a pilot who could barely pass flight school have such extraordinary skills to circle 270 degrees in such a way and descend 3,500 feet a minute and level out to ground level only 20 feet above the ground while traveling at 530 miles per hour? Maybe there was another skilled pilot involved that wasn't Hanjour. The airplane would only hit a couple lampposts, a tree, and a generator trailer before hitting the Pentagon between the first and second floor of the military headquarters. No visible scratches would remain on the lawn of the Pentagon. No large sections of airplane, and no publicly available video exists of the actual event before the blast, despite 83 cameras surrounding the Pentagon. Number 4. When you watch the videos of the Twin Towers collapse, the collapse appears similar to a controlled demolition. This seemed to have been ignored by the 9/11 Commission, as their report would bar 503 first responder eyewitnesses. Explosions in the lobby and sublevels collapsed. What if something other than a plane could have caused the building to suddenly collapse freefall style? One of the first firefighters in the stricken second tower, Louis Coccioli, 51, told People Weekly on September 24th, "I was taking firefighters up in the elevator to the 24th floor to get in position to evacuate workers. On the last trip up, a bomb went off. We think there were bombs set in the building." Many speculate that the towers were in fact blown down to explosives placed in selected locations. Some witnesses and firefighters were counted hearing explosions inside the building as they attempted to escape. Many architects and scientists even maintain that a plane's fuel cannot produce enough heat to melt the steel frames of the two buildings. Demolition experts say that the towers are the most difficult buildings to bring down in a controlled manner. A tower tends to fall like a tree, unless the direction of its fall is controlled by directional charges. The World Trade Center towers smokestacked neatly, falling within boundaries of their foundations. Skeptics say that this could not have happened coincidentally, and it must have been caused by strategically placed and precisely timed internal charges. If they are set in the right points of the building, it would not take too many to make the building collapse without the bombs looking noticeable. A lead engineer who designed the World Trade Center towers expressed shock that the towers collapsed after being hit by passenger jets. Structural engineer Lee Robertson claims to say, "I designed it for a 707 to hit it." The Boeing 707 has a fuel capacity of more than 23,000 gallons, comparable to the 767's 23,980 gallon fuel capacity. Number 5. On September 10, 2001, Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld held a press conference to disclose that over $2 trillion in Pentagon funds cannot be accounted for. Rumsfeld stated, "According to some estimates, we cannot track $2.3 trillion in transactions. According to a report by the Inspector General, the Pentagon cannot account for 25% of what it spends. This is money that we are taxed for." The mishandling of funds was blamed on untracked military spending. Such a disclosure normally might have sparked a huge scandal. However, the commencement of the attack on New York City and Washington in the morning would assure that the story remained buried and forgotten, as most people would raise attention to the terrorist attacks, to the trillions already missing from the coffers. An obedient Congress terrorized by anthrax attacks would add billions more in appropriations to fight the war on terror. Why this loss of $2.3 trillion wasn't such a big scandal still remains a big what the fuck mystery. $2.3 trillion is enough money to provide every living person in the USA approximately $7,210 each. Most of the individuals killed in the Pentagon attack were investigating this missing $2.3 trillion, and the computers storing the data were destroyed in the attacks as well. Many people believe the attack was a cover to kill and destroy all the evidence of the missing $2.3 trillion. A perfect yet complex robbery of taxpayers' money. Number 6. The first 2 planes hijacked crashed into the Twin Towers. The third hit the Pentagon. The fourth hijacked plane, Flight 93, crashed in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. It is still unknown where the plane was headed towards. It is believed that the passengers of Flight 93 fought back against the hijackers and crashed the plane into the field. Some skeptics believe that Flight 93 landed safely while a substitute plane was shot out of the sky. Other theorists believe that the passengers were murdered or relocated and will never be found. Many of these theories question, why is there no plane wreckage at the assumed crash site? Or why is there dry grass near the crash site not burnt at all? And why was the same aircraft reported landing in Cleveland about 2 hours after the crash? United Airlines stated that Flight 93 had landed safely at Cleveland Hopkins International Airport. Mayor Michael R. Wright states, a Boeing 767 out of Boston made an emergency landing Tuesday at Cleveland Hopkins International Airport due to concerns that it may have a bomb on board. This fact also supports the idea of Flight 93 being staged, as it is not possible for Flight 93 to land in an international airport 2 hours later after it had just crashed into a field. Another question is, why didn't this plane have a huge explosion similar to the planes that caused massive explosions upon impact on the Twin Towers? There's a huge amount of untouched grass surrounding the crash site, when it should have been burnt. This is supported by the fact that this plane would have been carrying a large amount of jet fuel, like the other planes, which should have ignited and caused a huge explosion, but this did not happen. Approximately 2 weeks later, the FBI made an astonishing announcement to the media that refuted the assumption that most of Flight 93 obliterated. The FBI claimed that they had recovered a whopping 95% of the plane. In the crash photos, it is hard to tell if the airplane even crashed. To further the absurdity, the reason there is no deep 40-degree angle hole in the ground that a Boeing 757 just supposedly bore down through is because after most of the Flight 93 tunneled down into the ground, officials say the loose soil fell back in on itself and covered the hole, thus blocking any view that most of the Flight 93 was down there. And if the official story couldn't get any more absurd, the section of Flight 93 that didn't find itself underground, but separated at impact and bounced in the woods was, get this, the cockpit. Wow. Number 7. In the aftermath of the 9/11 attacks, passports and identification were found as evidence. Many skeptics question how identification made out of paper survived the same explosion that destroyed buildings made out of steel. The passport of one of the hijackers was found by a passerby several blocks from the crash site. Another claim of how the passport was found was from FBI agent Dan Coleman, who explained the passport was not found by any agent on the World Trade Center site, but incredibly, that it had been given to Detective Yuk H. Chin by a mysterious man in a business suit about 30 years old who ran off after having handed the passport. This claim seems more realistic, but if it is, who was this mysterious man and why didn't the detective run after him? And is this only a statement to make the passport discovery seem more believable, rather than believing the passports were planted or found by some random passerby? If there was a passport obtained from the crash, how could a piece of paper be found in a good enough condition to be recognized, but black boxes that are virtually indestructible were found with messed up tape recordings? Something doesn't add up here.
Number 8.
Many in-flight calls were taking place during the 9/11 hijackings. How the calls were made is the big mystery. How could these calls be made in such a high altitude? One call would make people even more skeptical. Mark Bingham, a passenger on a Flight 93 plane, had called his mother and said, "Mom, this is Mark Bingham." Why would he call his mother and identify himself using his last name? According to Mark's mom, Mark would usually do this on business calls and may have accidentally did this to his mom because he was so used to it. Or maybe he could have said it to let his name be remembered. A total of 13 phone calls were made from Flight 93, a large number compared to the other flights that had in-flight phone calls. How the hijackers managed to allow this many calls from the passengers also seems pretty weird, unless they were too busy trying to fly the airplane. The phone calls attributed to Flight 11 attendants Betty Ong and Madeline Sweetney both went on for a number of minutes. Many researchers claim that the phone calls made from Flight 93 had to be fake as they were made from cell phones, which are believed to be impossible in high-flying aircrafts. In an article entitled "Ghost Riders in the Sky," Dewdney gives expert-sounding explanations of reasons cell phone calls from jetliners wouldn't work. At the altitude, he states, the signal would be too weak, and below 10,000 feet, calls made from a jet would cause problematic cascades and networks of cell sites on the ground. David Ray Griffin offers a tape recording of the phone call from United Airlines 93 flight attendant CC Lyles to her husband Lauren Lyles at 9:47 a.m. on September 11, 2001. He reproduces the text of what CC says on Lauren's answering machine. After CC completes her message, a female voice is heard in the background saying, "You did great." Griffin then asks, how could anyone not take this whispered comment as clear evidence that CC Lyle's message was a fake? To call it fake means that the message was not what it purports to be. It could have been a fake produced by voice morphing, or it could have been CC Lyles reading the script she was forced to read, in which case, the whispered message might have been a person coaching her. But in either case, the message was not authentic. Many people theorize that she may have been sitting next to a female passenger who was praising her message, but who in the hell would say you did great in a situation like that? The questions still remain on this case.
Number 9.
All jetliners are equipped with flight data recorders and cockpit voice recorders contained in black boxes designed to survive the most severe crashes. The plane's black boxes were one of the most important items under investigation following the 9/11 attacks. 3 out of 4 black boxes were found during a search, with only one being in good enough condition to listen to. There has always been some skepticism about this assertion, particularly as 2 New York City firefighters, Mike Ballone and Nicholas DeMasi, claimed in 2004 that they had found 3 of the 4 boxes and that federal agents took them and told the 2 men not to mention having found them. The FBI denies the story ever happened. The tape was not initially released, but shared with the families of victims in 2002. To date, none of the contents of any of the black boxes have been released to the public, with the exception of a partial transcript of Flight 93 CVR. The contents of any of the black boxes remained unknown to the public until August of 2006. Authorities have previously claimed that all but the voice recorder of Flight 93 were either not recovered or too damaged to yield data. Moreover, these devices are almost always located after crashes, even if not in usable condition, and the cleanup of the World Trade Center was meticulous, with even tiny bone fragments and bits of human tissue being discovered so that almost all the victims were ultimately identified. Even a seat cushion from one of the planes was discovered after the crash. Events that would damage the recorders sufficiently to make them unreadable are extremely rare. NTSB spokesperson Ted Lopakiewicz, I think I said that right, said that he couldn't recall a domestic case before 9/11 in which the recorders were not recovered. The recorders are designed to survive the kinds of impacts that happened at the World Trade Center and the Pentagon.
Number 10.
Osama Bin Laden originally denied any involvement with the 9/11 attacks on 2 separate occasions, but quickly afterwards, multiple tapes came out claiming he was fully responsible. One of the only times Bin Laden specifically confessed to having planned the 9/11 attacks was in a video that was later declared to be a total fake. Were these fake Osama Bin Laden videos made to turn the United States against Osama Bin Laden and support a war that would cost trillions of dollars and thousands of lives? The December 2001 Fat Nose Bin Laden video was magically found in a house in Jalalabad after anti-Taliban forces moved in. So you're telling me we can find random tapes of one guy on the other side of the country, but we can't find black boxes of an aircraft? Wow. The video featured a fat Osama laughing and joking about how he carried out 9/11. The video was also mistranslated in order to manipulate viewer opinion and featured Bin Laden praising 2 of the hijackers, only he got their names wrong. This Osama also used the wrong hand to write with and wore gold rings, a practice totally in opposition to the Muslim faith. Leading expert on Bin Laden, Duke University professor Bruce Lawrence, is also adamant that this so-called 9/11 confession tape is an outright fake that has been used by U.S. intelligence agencies to deflect attention from conspiracy theories about 9/11. When researchers continued to point out this fact, a second Bin Laden 9/11 confession appeared, this time in the form of an audio tape, released November 2007. A speaker who sounded like Bin Laden, according to Reuters, specifically pointed out that he was solely responsible for 9/11 and received no outside help. Once again, the tape contained no reference to current events that would have indicated when it was recorded. Every analysis of a newly released Al-Qaeda or Bin Laden tape has revealed inconsistencies, flaws, and suspicions. Wow.
Number 11.
New York real estate developer Larry Silverstein and several key individuals associated with this firm, Silverstein Properties, appear to have had remarkable luck on September 11, 2001, when changes in their schedule or coincidental circumstances saved them from being high up in the World Trade Center when it was attacked. Silverstein Properties took over the lease of the World Trade Center 7 weeks before 9/11, the only time the complex had gone under private control. And after 9/11, Larry Silverstein sought damages of over $7 billion from his insurers for the destruction of the Twin Towers. On September 11th, the firm had temporary offices on the 88th floor of the North Tower, only a couple of floors from where the American Airlines Flight 11 impacted the tower. Of its 160 employees, 54 were working in those offices at the time of the attacks, and 4 of them died. The fortunate circumstances that kept the high-level individuals out of danger the morning of 9/11 were quite extraordinary. After his company took over the lease of the Twin Towers on July 24, 2001, Larry Silverstein reportedly spent his days at the towers, meeting and greeting his tenants. According to New York Times, every morning after the deal was finalized, Mr. Silverstein held breakfast meetings at the Windows on the World, the restaurant at the top of the North Tower. Those meetings would begin at 8:30 a.m. Larry Silverstein, a man who ate breakfast at Windows on the World every morning, seemed to just skip out that morning of 9/11, only to still be at his apartment. After complaining of a problem with his skin and the sun, his wife forced him to go to a dermatologist appointment instead of a meeting at the World Trade Center. She even made the appointment, which was scheduled for that morning. Silverstein had recalled that he was getting dressed to go to the doctor on 9/11, but complained to his wife, "I have so much to do downtown. This is a horrendous waste of my time. I should be going to work." She retorted, "You're not going to cancel this appointment this morning. You're going to the dermatologist." Silverstein has noted, when you're married to the same woman for 46 years, you learn early on to say, "Yes, dear." All of the approximately 170 people and windows on the world at the time of the attack on North Tower, 8:46 a.m., died when the tower subsequently collapsed. Silverstein's aide, Geoffrey Wharton, could have been one of those 170 people and windows on the world, as he had an 8:30 a.m. meeting that Silverstein had missed. Wharton was meeting with Liz Thompson, the executive director of the Lower Manhattan Cultural Council. Fortunately, as Thompson has recalled, Wharton had to cut the meeting a little short and decided to escort Thompson down to the lobby. Consequently, Wharton and Thompson got on an elevator at 8:44 a.m., just 2 minutes before Flight 11 hit the tower. Only 2 other individuals were in that last elevator down from the 107th floor. Michael Nestor and Richard Tinner, both senior officials with the New York Port Authority, who were leaving the restaurant because Nestor had a meeting downstairs to attend. The 4 of them were the last people to make it out of windows on the world alive. 2 of Larry Silverstein's 3 children, Roger and Lisa, were vice president of the Silverstein Properties. After the company took over the lease of World Trade Center, Roger and Lisa Silverstein worked in his temporary offices on the 88th floor of the North Tower, and according to the New York Observer, attended meetings with tenants each morning at Windows on the World as well. But on the morning of September 11th, apparently independently of each other, both of them were running late. As a result, Roger Silverstein was in the parking garage of World Trade Center Building 7 when the North Tower was hit, and Lisa Silverstein was subsequently turned away from the World Trade Center complex by police further uptown. Furthermore, Silverstein Properties had been scheduled to hold a meeting the morning of September 11th in its offices on the 88th floor of the North Tower, reportedly to discuss what to do in the event of a terrorist attack. According to New York Times, that meeting was canceled the night of September 10th because one participant could not attend. Further details of the meeting, such as who was meant to be there and whether any people managed to stay away from the World Trade Center on 9/11 thanks to its cancellation, are unknown. A crazy fact about what went down before 9/11 was that Silverstein filed 2 insurance claims for any acts of terrorism, the maximum amount of the policy, based on 2, in Silverstein's view, separate attacks. The total potential payout is $7.1 billion, more than enough to build a fabulous new complex and leave a hefty profit for the Silverstein Group, including Larry Silverstein himself. As reported in the Washington Post, the insurance company Swiss Re has gone to court to argue that the 9/11 disaster was only one attack, not 2, and that therefore the insurance payout should be limited to $3.55 billion, still enough to rebuild the complex. During a TV interview with PBS for America Rebuilds in 2004, World Trade Center 7 owner and Twin Towers leaseholder Larry Silverstein made the following statement about the destruction of Building 7. "I remember getting a call from the fire department commander telling me that they were not sure that they were going to be able to contain the fire, and I said, we'd had such a terrible loss of life, maybe the smartest thing to do is pull it. And they made the decision to pull, and then we watched the building collapse." When Silverstein said, "pull it," was he referring to the explosion-controlled demolition of the building? Something people believe may have happened instead of an airplane causing a freefall collapse? The term pull is also used later in the same PBS documentary by a Ground Zero cleanup worker who said of World Trade Center 6, "It's not every day you try to pull down an 8-story building with cables." Bush hesitated for 441 days before starting the 9/11 Commission. The 9/11 Commission was given extremely limited funds, $15 million was given to investigate 9/11, an event nearly 3,000 people died in, and the whole US population left affected. Over $60 million was spent investigating Clinton's affairs with Monica. Bush said he watched the first plane crash into the North Tower on TV before entering the classroom. When he entered the classroom, it was 8:55 a.m., only 11 minutes after the first crash. Dismissing the event as an accident, he decided to still go into the classroom and do a reading for the students. Bush entered the second grade classroom of teacher Sandra K. Daniels at about 9:03. At about 9:06, the president's chief of staff, Andrew Card, came in and whispered in Bush's ear, telling him, which Card later reported, a second plane hit the second tower. America is under attack. Instead of leaving the room and taking action as commander-in-chief, Bush remained seated in the classroom with a look of discomfort as he picked up his book and read with children for 8 or 9 minutes while America was under attack. Minutes that meant lives. Even worse, the school Bush was at could have been a target as well, putting children's lives in danger. Many people question why Bush was so comfortable in this location. Why did the Secret Service not rush him to a more secure location? Bush, however, remained at the school an additional 20 minutes following the classroom reading, even addressing the nation that he was still at the school during the attacks and was headed to Washington. Many things have led up to this day, a day that could have been prevented or handled better if warning signs were taken more seriously. The direct warnings to Mr. Bush about the possibility of Al-Qaeda attack began in the spring of 2001. By May 1st, the Central Intelligence Agency told the White House of a report that a group presently in the United States was planning a terrorist operation. Weeks later, on June 22nd, Rosini and another FBI agent assigned to the CTC, Doug Miller, learned in January 2000 that one of the future hijackers, an Al-Qaeda operative by the name of Khalid al-Mihdhar, had a multi-entry visa to enter the US. The CIA was repeatedly warning President George W. Bush and other White House officials that an Al-Qaeda attack was imminent. But when Miller and Rosini attempted to warn FBI headquarters that al-Mihdhar could be loose in the US, a CIA supervisor ordered them to remain silent. The Daily Brief reported that Qaeda strikes could be imminent, although intelligence suggested the time frame was flexible. On June 29th, the brief warned of near-term attacks with dramatic consequences, including major casualties. On July 1st, the briefing said that the terrorist attack had been delayed but will occur soon. On July 24th, the president was told again that the attack had been delayed but will happen within months. These and other similar warnings were ignored by the White House. The neoconservatives in charge insisted that the threat was instead a coordinated diversion meant to distract attention from Saddam Hussein, who was perceived to be a greater threat. This opinion frustrated the intelligence community, who saw the theory as totally illogical. The White House failed to take any actions. In the aftermath of 9/11, Bush officials attempted to deflect criticism that they had ignored CIA warnings by saying they had not been told when and where the attack would occur. This is true, as far as it goes, but it misses the point. Throughout that summer, there were events that might have exposed the plans had the government been on high alert. Indeed, even as August 6th brief was being prepared, Muhammad al-Qahtani, a Saudi believed to have been assigned to role in the 9/11 attacks, was stopped at an airport in Orlando, Florida by a suspicious customs agent and sent back overseas on August 4th. 2 weeks later, another co-conspirator, Zacharias Moussawa, was arrested on immigration charges in Minnesota after arousing suspicions at a flight school, but the dots were not connected and Washington did not react. The revelation came as legislators demanded an explanation after an FBI memo alluding to ignored warning signs about 9/11 emerged. 2 months before the hijackings, FBI agents in Phoenix reported their suspicions about Arab students at a Phoenix flight school and directly referred to the possibility of a connection to Bin Laden. Illinois Senator Dick Durbin, who has read the memo, told ABC News Today they raised a very serious terrorism concern and threat to the United States, and it involved the use of training at aviation schools and terrorists from the Middle East. That should have been fair warning. The memo said terrorists might be seeking jobs with U.S. airlines or airports and urged FBI headquarters to obtain visa information on all individuals obtaining visas to attend these type of schools around the country. None of that was done until after September 11th, after 4 hijacked airliners plowed into the World Trade Center, the Pentagon, and a field in Pennsylvania. More than 3,000 people were killed and the World Trade Center destroyed. Flight school owners in Phoenix, where alleged hijacker Hani Hanjour trained, said they had their own suspicions. They claimed if the FBI were concerned, we would have been concerned and something would have happened. Investigations would have happened, said Richard Hasty, president of CRM Airline Training Center in Scottsdale, Arizona. Just weeks later, agents in Minnesota told headquarters of the arrest of a suspected terrorist, Zacharias Mazwa, at a flight school in St. Paul, suggesting he might be planning to hijack a plane and crash it into the World Trade Center. FBI field agents wanted to search his computer, but they were unable to get the authorization. No one was able to put the 2 warnings, Mazwa and Phoenix, together in the fateful weeks before September 11th. After all of these theories, is it possible that 9/11 was an inside job? Was it a way to touch the hearts of US citizens and help support a war that would cost trillions? Was it a way to profit off stocks and insurance claims? How did the leaseholder of the World Trade Center, out of all days, not be in the top floor of the North Twin Tower? How did his main aide and children just so happen to have bizarre reasons as to why they weren't in the buildings? Did they know about the attacks? Why did so many bet the airline stocks would go down if there was no news? Why didn't the Bush administration do something about the terrorist attacks and set up a defense system? How did phone calls go through while in such high altitudes? You let me know what you think in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Please like this video, subscribe, and share it to your friends. Thanks for watching the countdown.